everyone. Welcome to Maui'dVenture episode 1.5. Our logo says our adventures, God's goodness. But there's a little difference for this episode. It's 1.5 because today's video is just my adventures, God's goodness. So today's focus is going to be my lows, which are bringing me lots of little life lessons to learn. So the purpose of this video today is just to share a lot of my valleys, a lot of my lows. And nonetheless, with all of that, God is still so good in my life, and His goodness is abounding. So I have been working on putting a principle into action, and that is the principle of maintaining my happiness, my joy, my contentment, my peace, my fulfillment, despite the circumstances of life. So let me tell you, I've had some pretty low valleys lately, but nonetheless, God is still so good in my life, and I'm beginning to implement this principle and beginning to see the silver lining or the positives behind all of these low valleys that I've kind of been going through lately. And it kind of follows after the verse that I really like, which I'll get to later on, that talks about whether you are abased or whether you are abounding to find happiness and contentment despite whatever your circumstances. So I've been working on implementing that into my life. And let me tell you, when you set a goal for yourself, or when you set your mind to something, the test will soon be there right after. And that's been the case in my situation. I've really wanted to implement also not thinking, oh, I'll be happy when, or I can't be happy until, because so much of your happiness and so much of your life is going to be wasted. And so I want to find happiness in every situation. And I found some things that I really enjoyed and I hung on to that said happiness is about embracing what life has to offer right now, regardless of what that means, regardless of what that looks like or what that is. Happiness is about contentment. Happiness is about living amidst the circumstances, in any circumstance, whatever it may be. And happiness is about being at peace with and being grateful to God, because He has a plan in everything. And I'll get to another one of my favorite verses as well later on. And I love the encouragement that I find in God's word. In Psalms chapter 71, I've got several verses that really speak to me. Verse 6, it says, "By thee have I been holden up." And then it continues, "My praise shall be continually of thee." Verse 8 says, "Let my mouth be filled with thy praise." And that's what I want to implement and put into practice. Verses 14 and 15, "My mouth shall show forth thy righteousness and thy salvation all day, for I know not the numbers thereof. And I will go in the strength of the Lord God. I will make mention of thy righteousness." And that's what I want to do in this video in Maui'dVenture episode 1.5. My adventures, God's goodness, still the same. So let's get into some of the hardships I've been facing and still talk about God's goodness nonetheless. One of the really low valleys I have been experiencing lately has been a really long, difficult, drawn out waiting game, as we have tried to endure waiting for notification on either approval or disapproval of some paperwork Ryan and I have sent off to the county. It has been quite a wait, and it's been challenging to not know and to have so much uncertainty and to have so much up in the air. This was a pretty major thing that we've been waiting for and hoping for approval on, and if we didn't get granted our approval, we weren't sure what that would mean for us. So it was a pretty big deal, but I'll talk about how God blessed and how we're moving forward from that low valley. Another really low valley was losing our cat Bella. I don't know if you saw, but we requested prayer that she would be returned to us. We lost her when we took her with us on a trip for Ryan's birthday, and losing her was really devastating. She and Oakley, our dog, are as close as it comes to children for us. We don't have children of our own, and we treat them and love them just as though they were our children. So losing her was quite devastating and difficult. And we both really missed her a lot. And I'll get to the high mountain of her return later on. Another really low struggle of a valley was Ryan getting sick, and it had nothing to do with COVID. We had to cancel another trip. So last summer, when shortly after we got married, we had hoped to take our honeymoon, which we were unable to take because of the fires that were on island at the time. The airlines shut down, all flights were canceled for several days, and so we didn't get to go on our honeymoon. So we were hoping again for this summer to be able to take our honeymoon, and then of course, obviously, to COVID, we weren't able to go over into Europe, which is where we had hoped to go. So then we thought, okay, well, let's take a mainland road trip and go visit lots of friends and see lots of really cool places. And we were pretty stoked on that. And then, of course, we decided not to move forward with that because things still hadn't progressed and gotten better. And we didn't feel that it would be a safe and even an enjoyable situation. We just thought, with everything closed down and not being able to see the people we had hoped to visit, we wouldn't want to be the cause of anybody getting sick, so we had to cancel that trip as well. So then our fourth attempt was to book a trip over to Big Island, just to do inter-island. It was simple, it's supposed to be easy, it's supposed to be pretty safe. And then, of course, Ryan got sick at the time that we were supposed to head out, and we had to cancel that trip as well. So that was just like disappointment packed on disappointment on disappointment, disappointment. We were not able to go. We cannot get off this rock for whatever reasons, which I'll get to later. I know that there are some reasons, but we have had a hard time trying to enjoy our honeymoon. And now at this point, a year later, our anniversary. But it is what it is, and it's just been a disappointing low for us. But we'll talk about the goodness of it soon. Then Ryan and I both have begun to realize that our bodies are beginning to more often be achy and in pain, and it has really affected our physical abilities and our activities and being as active as we enjoy being. For myself, I really enjoy running. I've been a runner most of my whole life, and I have had to take days off or even weeks off from a knee injury or situation. It just seems like, head, shoulders, knees, or toes, something's wrong. I know it's the same thing for Ryan too. It seems like for us being in our 30s, it's almost like 30s are the new 40s. So we've had some adjustments we've had to make. And it's been pretty discouraging, and it's not fun to get older and to begin feeling those aches and pains, of course. And again, I'll get to the highs of this low later on. Another really big, what could have been low valley, was me quitting teaching. It's been a decision that's been on my heart and on my mind for quite some time. And I felt called to do something else, but I haven't known what that was for a while. And I've been hesitant to pull the trigger on actually making the decision to quit. And I did quit. But with that, obviously, I have no more benefits. I have no more solid, dependable, regular incoming paycheck. I've got no more retirement coming, all these benefits and things, just they're not there anymore. So that can be difficult to maneuver around and work out. And then, it's a lot of unknown and uncertainty, which is not a comfortable place to be in. Another really challenging obstacle for us has been our living situation. Though we are very grateful for being able to have a roof over our heads, our living situation is not ideal at this point yet. And it's been challenging. We are grateful, but it's a challenge as well. With COVID going on, we can't have visitors. We can't go visit others. As I mentioned, our travel plans have been greatly altered many times. We had hopes to have some friends come visit us. Like I mentioned before, we had hopes to go visit others, and we had to cancel on all of that too. So that just kind of adds to all these cancellations and alterations we've had in our plans. Just another disappointment on top of all of it. but there is a high. A there is good out of it. Back in March, when distance learning began, it was quite a challenge. It was difficult to not be able to see and interact with my students as I normally was able to, and to jump into, you know, online learning was something that I wasn't super comfortable with. I'm not a techie person. I don't know a lot about um, computers and webinars and whatnot, but that was a situation where I was thrown into the water, so to speak, and it was kind of just like sink or swim. And that proved to be a challenge and definitely brought me out of my comfort zone. But there is good that came out of that as well. Also with COVID, we have not been able to go to church. Our church had been shut down. So we weren't able to, have our fellowship with our church family and our church friends. And we've been more in isolation, of course, I'm sure as a lot of us have. And that's been challenging, but also lots of good coming out of that as well. And with the effects of COVID, stores have been closed. We've had a much slower pace of life. Life has just drastically been altered for all of us. And there have still been good things that have come out of all of this for us as well. Another one of our lows was for the past year or more, we have been living out of the little tiny mini fridge that you would, have in an office or something that I had in my classroom. It was this little tiny fridge that we've been living out of for over a year as our main fridge, our main source of keeping our food cold. And it was challenging. It was very difficult to be limited in how much space and room we had for our food. And at one point it started to leak and really cause a lot of water to get all over the place. So that was frustrating. Not only did we have to figure out how to cram and fit in things into every little crevice, but then just water everywhere. So there was really good that came out of that. Another situation that could have been a really low valley was I was driving Ryan's car last week, and there was a tire blowout on the driver's backside. And I was driving quite a distance and the tire blew up. I'll get to more about that in a minute. Another vehicle situation was this week, early morning. I got into my truck to head out to my work, which I'll get to, and my truck wouldn't start. And turns out that the other end of the story to that is quite amazing, but I'll get to that later on. Lastly, this one's a tough one. This one is pretty heavy. I received word from someone who I'm very close to that they were going to be taking their life. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced being told by someone else that they're going to be taking their own life, but that comes with a lot of heaviness. That brings you down really low pretty quickly. And to try and fight and do as much as you can for that person and still not be able to change their mind is very difficult to handle and deal with. You just feel helpless. You feel at a loss. I tried to think of all these things that I could do on my end to help support and to help to seek out help for this individual. And when it's rejected, it's very emotionally draining. Obviously, this person is in a lot of pain. They're in a lot of despair. They're feeling hopeless and helpless as well. So super, super heavy, low valley for me. When COVID began, I saw this meme that said, we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. And I really liked that because for me, yes, COVID did affect me, did affect my life. It could be thought of as affecting my life and me in a very negative way. It was life altering for all of us, I'm sure. And I don't invalidate or negate anyone else's sufferings and how their lives have been altered so drastically, and even possibly maybe their life has even been taken. And my heart goes out to them, and my heart goes out to all who have been affected and who are suffering and facing hardships. However, in my situation and in my experience, I am choosing to recognize the low valleys, which are, as I've mentioned. However, I want to take that recognition and turn the focus and see the good, which I think can be done in any situation. And like I said, it's a principle I'm learning to put into practice in my own life. And when I started to do that, I was blown away at just how good God still is, despite the lemons of life, the really hard, tough, difficult stuff. And so I'm going to get into the highs, the mountains of all of these valleys that I talked about, how the highs greatly outweigh the lows. So back to waiting such a long time for notification, whether we had been approved or disapproved of this really important paperwork, this vital step in our lives that was going to tell us our direction one way or the other. We did get approval and a favorable answer for us and a definite direction and way to move forward. And we're so grateful for that. That was a very difficult wait. And it was hard in the meantime with that uncertainty and that unknown and that anxiety that tends to come with that, not being able to control and know the outcome of something. I'm learning patience in the process. I'm learning faith. I'm learning to trust the Lord with whatever the outcome is. And that's been powerful in my life. And maybe, as you know, as far as losing Bella goes, we did have her return to us a month and a few days later from the time that we lost her. A woman, an amazing woman named Marina, found her about 3 miles away from where we had initially lost her, in a location where we hadn't put any signs out. But she found her and just so happened to consider that maybe she was lost. Bella had a little ID tag. Marina got the phone number from the tag, called us, and she was returned to us within a day. And we were just so grateful to have her back. We really didn't think after that long amount of time that we would see her again. And we're so grateful that the Lord protected her. And that was my prayer, that the Lord would protect her, that the Lord would provide her needs for her, and that the Lord would direct her to a really kind, gentle, animal-loving person. And Marina just so happens to be a vet tech, and it was as though all of my prayers for Bella had been answered. And I'm just so grateful that the Lord cares even for our, what we might consider small requests. In the bigger, grander scheme of the world, the Lord still cares about our cat. And it's just very touching. And it really meant a lot to us to have the Lord protect her, provide for her, keep her, and bring her back to us and return her to us. So we're so grateful for that. As far as Ryan's sickness goes and us having to cancel so many trips, the good in that is that we have been able, prior to having to cancel, we were diligent in saving for this trip that we had to keep kind of changing and altering. But we had been faithful and diligently putting away every month. And that has been a blessing now that we have this kind of nest egg of a little bit of cushion. And not that our security is in this or in anything else other than the Lord, but it is a comfort to know that if some emergency happens or if something comes up, we have this little nest egg to turn to and to help in a situation where we may need it. It's a little safety net for us, and we're thankful for that. As far as the aches and the pains and feeling the age come upon us, we're still so grateful for the faculties and the capabilities that we do have. And there's a great reminder that comes with this, that our value, our identity, our worth does not come from our looks, our appearance. I'm finding that I'm finding wrinkles and gray hairs, and it's not all about the outward. What is even more important is the inward. And we feel like this time with COVID has allowed for time with that slower pace of life for us to get deeper into God's word and reconnect with him more easily and more quality and quantity amounts of time. And we are still able to do many things that others cannot. We can walk, we can run, we can jump up and down, we can do a lot of things that others can't do and that a lot of us take for granted. So we want to notice the lemonade from these lemons of the aches and the pains and the wrinkles and the gray hairs that we're getting, and still be grateful for the health and the wellness and the life, just even the life that we still do have, because as we know, it can be taken in an instant. So as far as teaching and quitting my job, as I mentioned, I felt called to something else, but I didn't know what. But the Lord did. And I feel, led and guided me to where I'm at now, which is I'm providing homeschooling and tutoring, private tutoring to several different families. And I get to go to these amazing locations that have incredible views. Maybe you've seen some pictures of, and I get to work one-on-one with kids, which is awesome. I'm loving every bit of it so far. And the Lord is providing so much work that I'm having to turn work down. And I'm going to each job and I'm so excited, and I'm not feeling drained. I'm not feeling side effects from a really long, hard day. I'm not getting headaches. I'm not feeling these tense, pinched nerve, frozen shoulder kind of symptoms, which I had been experiencing from really long days on the job in the classroom. I'm just really enjoying the freedom and kind of just being my own boss, making my own schedule, making my own wage. And the Lord has just been blessing. Like I said, I've been turning work down. It's been so consistent and so reliable. All the unknowns are still not known. I'm still trying to figure my way through all of this and figure out ways to make it work and still afford the budget that we have. But I'm trusting God, knowing that his best interest is for me, for us, and that he will see me through. And in the process, I am really just enjoying placing that faith and that trust in his hands and kind of just relaxing and having peace moving forward. And that's pretty awesome. With our less than ideal living situation, we're still very grateful that we get to live. First of all, that we get to live, that we have breath in our lungs and a heartbeat, and that we're still plugging along, but also that we get to live here in Hawaii. And that's every day a blessing, and every day a piece of gratitude that's on my lips, giving gratefulness to the Lord, because it's absolutely a dream come true to be able to live here. Absolutely a dream, and I love it every single day. With not being able to have friends come visit, or not being able to go and visit friends, and being isolated and not having fellowship with church and with our friends here on the island and all these different things, really good things have come out of it still nonetheless. We have been participating in several different online meetings or online groups. At this point right now, I'm a part of 3 different groups that meets weekly, and that's been such a blessing that came out of a really challenging situation with so much isolation and so much limitation on socializing. And the awesome thing about it too is that there's so much less like rushing around and being in a hurry and being out late at night. And I've been able to reconnect with a friend who lives just 10 minutes down the road, who I haven't seen in like a year. able to reconnect with her. I've also been able to reconnect with another friend, another busy teacher friend of mine that I haven't gotten to see in a long time. And it's that slower pace of life that has allowed for that. And so, yes, the effects of COVID have been challenging, a struggle, and difficult in some ways, but also in other ways, like very positive, very good for us, for me. And I'm thankful for those. With being thrown into distance learning and coming out of having to come out of my comfort zone and learn technology and learn how to have a new platform for teaching students and not being able to interact and all that stuff, not being able to do as I normally would, it's brought on this new interest and this new hobby that I now have found so much enjoyment in, and that is in creating iMovies and slideshows and things, because I was doing a lot of that for my students when I was teaching. And I've really, my world has been open, my mind has been blown by YouTube. I never really got into YouTube until I had to. And also with that slower pace of life, we have also gotten into gardening. We've been able to, as I mentioned, spend a lot more time with God, a lot more time in His Word. We started working on some home projects. We got this really cool tree swing made that we absolutely love. We're working on different projects and things, and I've just been enjoying recently. Really been enjoying gardening. I've begun to understand what the craze is about gardening. There's just something so amazing about planting a seed and then watching it come up and be something totally different than what you started with. That's pretty amazing, and have a part in that. Of course, all thanks to the Lord and what He does in the process, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome to take some kind of ownership along the way in that as well. Is really neat, very cool. As for our tiny little leaky fridge, the great thing that came out of that, and this is like super great, let me tell you, is we bought a brand new, beautiful, amazing, real, normal size refrigerator. And this is like one of the first pieces of furniture that I've ever really gone all out on, ever really bought brand new. And it's amazing. Let me tell you, it's like life changing to have space to put your food in. It's amazing. Such a gift that we were able to purchase and move on from our tiny little fridge. It's been so amazing. I can't say enough about that. So moving on to the blown out tire. As I mentioned, I was driving along. I was going quite a distance from my house and where I was going, and I was hearing this kind of like flap, 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 flap. And I thought I had been to the forest a day or two before, and I thought maybe a stick like got stuck in the tire somewhere and was like flapping as I was driving. But I didn't think too much about it, and I just kept going, continuing on, and then the flapping eventually stopped. Come to find out, later on, I got to my destination. I took a look from the outside view. I couldn't see anything on my end, but there was definitely a very different feel to the car. It was kind of like doing this little vibration thing. So anyway, I called Ryan. I told him what I was experiencing. He said, pull over, hang out, wait for me, I'm coming. And so I did. He came and he said, okay, the tire's flat, and tried to put some air into it. Wouldn't blow up with air, wouldn't fill up with air. And then so we started to take the tire off, and he reached like behind the tire to the part where you can't see, and it's just like wide open. Like you can actually stick your fingers inside the tire. Like apparently that's what that flapping was. And then it was gone. You reach in and there's a picture. I have a picture of it. But I was granted traveling mercies. I've never had a blown out tire before. I've never experienced like, I guess, what that can do to the car and make you spin out or, make you lose control, whatever. I didn't feel any of that. I just heard this flapping, and then I heard nothing. And then it was kind of just driving like this, and it wasn't anything. I can't say it wasn't. It was definitely noticeable, but it wasn't anything that made me feel like I needed to stop driving. And I just give all honor, glory, and praise to the Lord for keeping me safe. It was literally like so blown out, and it was like a running flat kind of tire. I don't know what that means, but maybe you will. nonetheless, I was granted traveling mercies, and I'm really super thankful for that. Then there was my truck that wouldn't start, and that was on a day when I had to leave to go to work, to go to a family and teach their child. I called Ryan right away, and he said, "You know what is crazy?" He said, "I was getting in my car, I had everything packed into my car, and he's like, something just felt like I should go drive my truck instead." So he said, "I pulled everything out of the car and I moved everything over to the truck, and I took off in the truck for work. And I left the keys in the car for you." He said, "I don't know why. I had no reason to do that other than I just felt like that's what I needed to do. And that's what I did." And so I quickly, got into the car, was able to make it to work on time. If he hadn't done that, I would have been stranded. I would have had to cancel out on my job with the family. Wouldn't have been an ideal situation to have to do. But the Lord provided. The Lord has been keeping me safe. The Lord has been providing. The Lord has been so good, so amazing. I cannot say it enough. And this whole video is not about me. It's not about anything. It's not to compare where my suffering is any different or better or worse off than anybody else's suffering. The purpose of this video is simply to just talk about how amazing God is. Amazing. He's so good to me, and I'm so thankful. And I just feel this gratitude welling up inside of me, and all I could do is share it. That's all I can do. And despite the highs, despite the lows, he's still good nonetheless, regardless of all of it. So I'm going to kind of close this down, wind it down, and just say that when we live in accordance with what God's will for our lives is, and when we surrender, and when we align our lives to his plan for us, life does not all of a sudden become perfect and everything's great and wonderful and rainbows and butterflies. But true happiness does take over, and contentment is truly found. That's at least what I can say in my life, because I have been brought to that point. Thank the Lord in all of his work on me. That's at the point where I can honestly say that I'm at right now. And I've had, like I said, I had some low, low lows. Oh, I forgot one. I was saving this one till the end. The news about this person who was planning to take their life. At this point, I don't know. I don't know where they are with that. I've been reaching out to them and I haven't been receiving anything. I've received nothing. So please pray for this particular individual. The Lord knows who it is. But the comfort, the peace that I found in relation to the difficult circumstance of dealing with that came from Psalms 72, verse 14. It says, "He shall redeem their soul from deceit," which is what it is. If a person is at that point of wanting to take their life, they have been deceived by Satan, by the world, by others, that this is the only answer, that this is their only way out, that they are not of any worth or of any value, and this is what needs to take place. They are being deceived. He shall redeem their soul from deceit and violence that they want to do even unto themselves. It says, "And precious shall their blood be in his sight." And the Lord brought this to me shortly after I kind of became involved in trying to reach out to this person, and it was just a peace. It was just a stillness, a peace that came over. As much as I love this person, God loves them even more. And their blood, their life is so much more precious to him even than it is to me. And I know that he's going to do everything on his end that he can to bring this person out of where they are. And truly, he is the only one who can help. So that was the amazing, amazing blessing that came out of that. And like I said, I don't know the outcome as of right now. And, but I'm trusting that it's in his hands, whatever the outcome will be. And I'll have to move forward, trusting and having faith in his plan, and not relying on my own understanding, but giving acknowledgement and glory to him. And so that's what I plan to do. There is such a security found in Romans chapter 8, which is one of my favorite Bible verses. Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and to them who are called according to his purpose. And I can say firsthand that I've experienced this. All things are working together for good in my life. Not perfect, far from it. Highs and lows, very low lows. But God is fulfilling his purpose. And I continue to claim that promise. And that promise is to anyone. It says, to anyone who loves God, to them who are called according to his purpose. And that is for every single one of us. Every single one of us are called by God and are called to live out his purpose for us. Back to Psalms, verse 40. I found comfort also in verse 1. I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined unto me and heard my cry. So if you think about the creator of the world, who is vastly far superior in every way than we are, you think about that one inclining his ear to the mumblings and the murmurings of our lips, to my lips. Like, who am I that you would incline your ear to me? But he does. And I definitely had to wait patiently for many answers to some of these prayers. Isaiah 43, verses 18 and 19 was another source of comfort and strength. Remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know of it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. I can definitely say that I've seen God put these verses into action in my own life, where I thought would be a desert. He has turned into springs of water and overabundance of flowing out of blessing in my life. The last one that I want to read is Philippians chapter 4, verse 12. I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer. And I actually like it in a different version a little more, because it really helps me understand just the depth of what this is saying. It says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. That, I think, is an amazing verse for all of us to take into our hearts, to put into practice and into action in our lives, and apply just what this is giving to us. Contentment, peace, happiness, joyfulness, despite the circumstances of life. And that is where I'm wanting to take my faith walk with the Lord, and to go deeper into understanding and applying that in my own life. I think if we pray to Jesus for help in finding contentment, regardless of our circumstances, God will definitely grant us that request. As we put in our own effort, I think he will definitely take the wheel and do the rest. And I can definitely attest to this in my own life. And I'm so, so thankful. In closing, there's this boarded up store in Paia as I drive through occasionally for work. All of COVID could be looked at as an opportunity to reject what we would call normal and build something different and better off for us, better off for this world, better off for our families, our homes. I believe Jesus is coming soon. COVID has provided the opportunity for us to have more time right now to get right with God, to get our homes, our families, our lives, ourselves right with God, and to get ready for what is coming. I believe COVID is just the beginning of it continuing to get worse and worse. And I think people, because of all of the things going on, people are beginning to be more truth-driven. They're seeking out answers for themselves. They're turning to this word, which I think is awesome. This is where truth comfort, peace, hope, love, everything good comes from. I hope that you too will see the value in getting familiar and familiarizing yourself with this word, in spending time with it, in building a relationship with the Lord and getting to know him and being ready for what is to come. That is my prayer and my hope for you. That is my purpose in this video. And I hope through my experiences, there's at least one little piece you can take from it and implement into your own life. But my biggest hope is that you'll get to know Jesus for yourself and give your life to him while you still have the time and before it's too late. Maui'dVenture, God's goodness. Aloha.